Traces of history in the quiet of a Carolina morning. In the 1700s, the Crossroads here gave birth to a frontier settlement with a curious name, 96. It's hard to imagine that this was the site of a violent struggle. A fight that would pit backcountry settlers against one another. Hope and opportunity traveled these roads, as did conflict, revenge, and revolution. In the early 1700s, traders and settlers began making their way into the lands surrounding 96. Old Indian trails have now become roads. Pioneers head toward Cherokee country, fueled by the dream of owning their own land. By the 1760s, a hamlet emerges. It's located near a crossroad connecting the coastal city of Charleston to Cherokee Indian Territory. They name it 96 because it is believed by some to be 96 miles from here to Kiowee, an important Cherokee town. The settlers come from Germany, England, Scotland, and Ireland. They'll later be joined by settlers from the northern colonies. One of the first is Robert Gowdy. Around his trading post, the town of 96 will grow. The settlers build homes, set up businesses, and plant crops. All share the same goal: to start new lives and live in peace. 96 will soon become a center of commerce in the Western Carolinas. At first, the relationship with the Cherokees is peaceful. Many come to Gowdy's post, trading furs for metal goods and guns. But in time, any sense of harmony comes to a violent end. The Cherokees have endured unscrupulous traders and the depletion of their game. Now, the loss of their land forces them to strike back. Constant fear of an Indian attack is only part of the struggle of living at 96. There are no schools, no jails, and in a wilderness with no law enforcement, the only justice is frontier justice. Theft, assault, and horse thievery are rampant. So angry mobs known as regulators take the law into their own hands. The regulators are eventually replaced by a circuit court system, and 96 becomes the backcountry's center of law and justice. The divisions the regulators created will continue for years. By the time the American Revolution comes to South Carolina, many folks have a score to settle. November 1775.
I see movement in the woods.
Blood has been shed at Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill. And now, another fight. This one at the town of 96. It is the first land battle of the Revolution to be fought in the southern colonies. Backcountry farmers, merchants, and traders battle for 3 days. On one side are King's men, settlers who feel their freedom depends on remaining loyal to the crown. On the other side are Patriots, They've been convinced that true freedom will only come by separating from the crown.
Man to your post!
Leading the Patriots are Major Andrew Williamson
Hold your fire!
and Captain Andrew Pickens.
Aim low!
Like most in the Carolina backcountry, they're God-fearing and fiercely independent. On this day, Williamson and Pickens fight together, but by war's end, they will find themselves on opposite sides. The first battle at 96 ends in a draw. 64 are wounded, 2 are killed, all are Americans. Among the dead is James Birmingham, the first Patriot killed in the South during the Revolution. War that will become more personal and far uglier than the Revolution to the North. At the center of the fight for the Carolina backcountry is the outpost of 96. July 1776. 9 months after the first battle at 96, America declares its independence from Britain. While the war rages in the North, the backcountry of South Carolina settles into an uneasy peace. Most here hope to stay out of the crossfire. By 1779, that hope had all but disappeared. The British embark on the Southern Campaign. Their goal? Abandon the fight in the North, split the colonies, keep the rich agricultural lands of the southern provinces under the British Crown. May 1780. The British seize Charleston, then move inland, crushing any hint of rebellion. The same roads that once brought hope and opportunity to the Carolina backcountry now bring war. Andrew Williamson, who fought bravely at the First Battle of 96, joins the British cause. Patriot Andrew Pickens, who also fought at the First Battle of 96, surrenders and accepts a British offer of parole. Pickens promises to never again take up arms against the Crown. Key to the British plan of controlling the backcountry is the town of 96. They occupy the village, then build a stockade around it. In command is Lieutenant Colonel John Harris Kruger. Like Pickens, Kruger is an American by birth. The son of an elite New York family, Kruger has chosen to remain loyal to the Crown. His orders from the British command: keep possession of the backcountry. The success of the war depends on it.
We're starting platform number 3 to move!
October 1780. Kruger and British engineer Lieutenant Henry Haldane have come up with a brilliant plan that will make 96 the most formidable defense in the Carolina backcountry.
Heave away, lads, heave away! Break your backs or I'll break them for you!
The Loyalists construct a massive 8-point star fort. The site is located 100 yards from the stockaded town of 96.
Shore these up, pack that down! Dig that dirt, tote that barge, lift that sail!
200 laborers, including slaves from nearby plantations, perform the back-breaking work. They toil for months, digging into the heavy red clay to build the earthen structure.
Bend like your life depends on it, as it does!
Kruger's fort is an engineering masterpiece. The 8-pointed design allows the defenders to fire their muskets and cannons in all directions. Its earthen walls are 14 feet high, up to 15 feet wide, thick enough to stop a cannonball. Stacked on top are layers of sandbags. Surrounding Kruger's star fort is a ring of frays, sharpened stakes sunk into the ramparts. Beyond the frays is a ditch and a circle of sharpened tree branches called abattis, an 18th century equivalent of barbed wire. Connecting the star fort with the stockaded town is a communication trench called a covered way. One British officer remarked, that it would be mad to assault such a stronghold. The Americans respond to the British invasion by sending the Continental Army into the South. Like the British, the Americans hope to convince the Southern militias to fight for their cause. Both sides vie for the services of the man they feel can determine the fate of the backcountry: Andrew Pickens. December 1780. English officers issue Pickens an invitation and a warning: fight for the king or be considered a traitor. Pickens' response: he has pledged to remain neutral. But in this war, it is impossible to remain neutral. For most of his life, Andrew Pickens has known nothing but war. Now he must choose to be loyal to the king or fight for the Patriots. January 17, 1781. A combined force of Continentals and militia stunned the British at Cowpens. The Patriot victory at Cowpens, coming on the heels of a victory at nearby Kings Mountain, turns the tide of war. One by one, British posts in the South are captured or abandoned. May 21st, 1781. He is the Patriot commander who will change the destiny of 96. Major General Nathaniel Greene has arrived with over 900 Continentals. Inside the Star Fort are Kruger and over 100 battle-hardened loyalists from New York, New Jersey, and South Carolina.
Right there. Fire off.
Just as in the first battle at 96, the coming fight will pit American against American. Greene's chief military engineer is Colonel Thaddeus Kosciuszko. The Polish-born Kosciuszko is a veteran of wars in Europe. He convinces Greene to do the unthinkable: attack the Star Fort. To take it, they plan to squeeze the Loyalists into submission using classic siege warfare. The Patriots' siege strategy: seal off the roads leading into 96, cut off Kruger's water supply, dig a series of approach trenches called saps closer and closer to the walls of the Star Fort, dig parallel trenches, fill them with infantry and artillery, then batter the Star Fort. For the next 3 weeks, the Patriots grind forward in the trenches. They dig through red clay, ground Kosciuszko calls soft stone. The work is backbreaking, in brutal heat and around the clock, all while under cannon and musket fire from Kruger's loyalists. Once near the fort walls, they construct a 30-foot tall rifle tower so marksmen can fire down into the fort. Kruger counters by raising the fort walls with sandbags. Just 100 yards away, the town and a nearby stockaded fort are also under siege. The town is crowded with families, soldiers, and livestock. Rather than flee, they've chosen to remain at 96. The conditions inside are miserable. Water is in short supply, and there's an outbreak of smallpox. On June 8th, Greene receives welcome news. Fresh from a victory at Augusta, Georgia, Lieutenant Colonel Light Horse Harry Lee and a combined force of Continentals and militia arrive. Leading the militia is Brigadier General Andrew Pickens. Pickens had pledged to remain neutral, but in December 1780, his plantation was destroyed by settlers loyal to the crown. The act convinces Pickens that he can never swear allegiance to the king. For the Loyalists, the situation has become desperate. Kruger is now outnumbered 2-1. But But the siege of 96 is about to take an astonishing turn. Marching from Charleston towards 96 is a British relief force of over 2,000 men, nearly twice the size of Greene's army. With the Loyalist reinforcements now just days away from 96, Greene is boxed into a corner. He must either give up the siege or attack the Star Fort immediately. Noon, June 18, 1781. Greene's decision is made. A small group of Continentals from Virginia and Maryland volunteer for what some consider a suicide mission. Their goal? Breach the fort's walls, opening it up for attack by the larger Patriot force. The attackers are known as the Forlorn Hope. The Loyalists unleash a curtain of artillery and musket fire. The Forlorn Hope surges forward through the zigzag of trenches. They are armed not only with muskets, but with axes and long metal hooks. Sharpshooters from the rifle tower provide cover. Now, just outside the fort, the Continentals emerge from the trenches and charge. The Forlorn Hope makes it into the ditch and attempts to storm the fort walls. Using hooks, they desperately try to tear down sandbags stacked on the parapet. The Loyalists fight back with bayonets and crude spears. And then, a crushing blow. Two Loyalist detachments exit the rear of the fort and charge through the ditch towards the Continentals. Within minutes, the Patriots are surrounded and trapped. The Forlorn Hope is lost, as is any hope of Patriot victory. 45 minutes after his attack began, General Greene has seen enough. 50 Patriots assaulted the Star Fort. 30 are now dead or wounded. 2 days after the disaster, the Patriots withdraw. The siege lasted 28 days. The longest field siege of the Revolutionary War. Killed during the siege is Joseph Pickens, the younger brother of Andrew Pickens.
All hands to the word!
For Kruger, the Loyalist victory at 96 is a hollow one. His force is still isolated in the Carolina backcountry, and his defenses at 96 have been weakened. So the British command issues Kruger this order: fire the town, abandon the backcountry, gather the Loyalists of 96, and retreat to Charleston.
Every second house, that's far enough, go!
96 was founded on the promise of hope and opportunity. Now, some 20 years later, it is yet another casualty of the fire of war. Kruger leaves, knowing the fight for the backcountry is all but over. Four months later, at Yorktown, Virginia, British Commander Charles Cornwallis surrenders to General George Washington. For most, the American Revolution was over. But in South Carolina, this civil war within the Revolution would continue for years. Unlike the fight up north, this was a war that came to them. Most here simply wanted to live in peace, but were forced to choose sides in a war they desperately wanted to avoid. John Harris Kruger remained loyal to the king, but paid a terrible price. At the end of the Revolution, this native of New York has his property confiscated and is exiled to England. Andrew Pickens, the leader of the militia at both battles of '96, is elected to the South Carolina House, then the U.S. Congress. He dies in 1817, a hero of South Carolina and of America. Today, 96 National Historic Site preserves not only the memory of the Revolution, but also colonial life. The once thriving village has faded away. But the earthen walls of Kruger's Star Fort remain to this day. It is the best preserved earthen works from the Revolution. The remnants of the roads that gave birth to this frontier settlement still pass through a forest of dogwoods and oaks, just as they did 250 years ago. Hope and promise traveled these roads to 96. So did a revolution. Today, 96 is a monument to all who lived, fought, and died in search of a new life and in search of a better life in the backcountry of South Carolina.